Howdy chaps, and we're back. I don't know what's wrong with the weather, but it's like 1,000 degrees today. It was freezing cold the other day, and now it's a million. Yeah, so the XB was a mint car on the weekend. Put nearly 200 Ks on that. Performed beautifully. Had a great first Father's Day. We'll probably do a catch-up video on that at some point. I've got to do a few little minor things to it. But yes, today's task is to put the boot floor in. I've just got it out at the moment, and we'll show you how we're travelling along with that. Top of the rails are all clean. They were bare metal the other day and copper sprayed. So we'll get stuck into it today, and then hopefully, maybe if we get that in, that section. Wow, the sunlight's awful. That section repaired, we might be able to get this midsection off. But we've got to play it by ear. There's 1,001 tasks, and each one of them takes a bit of time. But hopefully, putting that in won't take ages. Got to say a big shout out to all my new subscribers, the ones who've been, the new ones and the ones who've been here for a while. Yeah, it's pretty incredible that we got. We're not actually far from 1,300. It'd be great if we could get some more, but yeah, it's still incredible. And if you want something fun to do, check out Automotive Carnage, and that's with a K. He's doing a Tirana giveaway. He's he pulled an LC Tirana out of the bush. Doesn't look offensive, and he's giving that away on his channel. You go hit subscribe and email him at tiranagiveaway@gmail.com, and he will put your name in a list. And I reckon in a week or two he's going to pull a name out, and you could win yourself an LC Tirana. And if you're on this channel as a Ford guy, you probably won't care. But even I entered, because who doesn't want a free car, even if it's potentially a pile of rust in close formation. But I thought that was cool. It's a pretty cool thing he's doing on his channel. I'd love to do something similar, but unfortunately I've got nothing that's good enough to give away. So yeah, go check that out. That's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. Give him a subscribe. Yeah, we'll crack into this and show you the progress of the day. So I did my spraying under there, and I may have missed a little bit, but there is enough there to see where the edge of the chassis rail is. So the rail is just there, so I'm going to do a tape line across here, and then spray it with probably, oh no, it's etched, so, and it's not rusty, so I'll probably spray that with black etch, and then I can peel the tape off and drill where all the holes need to be, and then clean up all these flanges here and around there and up there and under here and through there, and probably tackle that after I put the new back panel on, and I could get it prepped to go back in. What is with every vehicle driving past while I'm filming today? I don't know what it is. And we could stick this in a jiffy. This is actually fairly straightforward. I mean, as you saw in the last video, I cleaned up the chassis rails, so all I gotta do is prep this and I can stick it straight in, which should be awesome. You were thinking I was going to say looking lovely, but it is that too. 50 bajillion plug welds later, well, not plug welds, plug weld holes. Yeah, so that's where the top of the rail goes. So I've been down here, through there, across there, some there, up the side, across there, and now there is actually effectively two rows of spot welds through there from what I remember drilling off. I'm going to actually, part of me really wants to flare this end and that bit so that it looks factory. I think I'll give it a red hot go, maybe at least that bit. Just part of me wants it to look right. I don't think it's going to take much doing just to fold those edges around about 5mm. They need to be like tweaked up a little bit. But yeah, the rest of it's not bad. I've brush off all the filings. So what I'm going to do now is clean up here a bit better, and copper spray and retape, and then spray copper spray through here where the top of the rail goes, and copper spray through here and across the back and the top side of this, I reckon. And then we should be right to throw this back in the car and start welding it in. And plus, it is good to have a bit of paint in there where you'll never ever get to it, because that's effectively the inside of the chassis rail. And then later down the track, this can all be like stone gated once all the car is done underneath, and it will look smashing. Alrighty, I've just flared the ends just a little bit there, there, and around here. I'll have to trim that a little bit. It seems that that was two pieces welded together, but anyway, I flared the ends. It bothered me enough that I wanted to do something about it, because at least when it's in there, it'll look at least close to the right shape. It wasn't too hard. I just put a dolly in there and just tapped around the edge through there and just stuck it in the folder briefly for there and there. And that's it. That's the only things I would do to this panel. And if I had a press, I'd press in the circles through here. That's about it though. They're the only things I would tweak on this panel just to make it 100%. They're the only things that bothered me, was the fact that the sides weren't flared and the circles aren't pressed. That's it. Other than that, killer piece. Couldn't go too far wrong. And I'll tweak this shape when it's in. But yeah, there we go. Now it's spray it with some copper spray and stick it in. Glue tab A to part B. Okay, after much tweaking, well actually not that much tweaking, we got it in, sitting down. What I'm going to do, I was playing with it before. See how it's a little bit low here. I'm going to weld these first and then push that up in the corner, just so it can sit up higher than it's sitting lower in here than the original piece. So what I'm going to do, and when I push this up, these came up too high, but I'm really interested in the rail being that being flat on the top of the rail first, because you can tweak that up afterwards. So I'm going to weld these, the main ones first, and then I'll put that up. But for the most part, everything is fitting really quite well. Pretty happy with it actually. So I'm going to weld this in, and we'll catch up in a second. I thought I'd do a little trick to show you how, one way to test how to see if your weld is actually holding. So you'll notice that when it's on that, it's actually quite a solid sound. Sounds hollow, sounds hard, sounds soft, sounds hard, sounds hard. So where it's not welded, obviously, it's quite a tinny sound. So you know that is a solid weld and there's nothing there. So if you've done a weld and it sounds like that, it's not holding. So, and then if you do a weld and it sounds very similar to how a pair of vice grips sound, clamping it with all its force, then yeah, it's holding pretty well. It's just an interesting little trick. You can tell if your weld is actually doing anything. It's all about listening. Totally different sounds. That's also one way to tell if your weld is holding. So that might be a helpful trick in the future. If you've done one, you're like, oh, I wonder if that's holding, and you hear it, it sounds solid, then yes, it's holding. So I'm just sort of going to strategically do these along, but I thought that was a neat trick. I learnt that years ago, and it's super helpful in this sort of thing. And I thought it'd be quite a good hint or trick to pass on to you chaps who seem to like what I get up to. So I hope you enjoy that one, and keep on keeping on. So one thing that I have to add in with welding this thing in, if I could somehow get a message to the person who made this, if you could just make that less pointy, that would be fantastic. yeah, I think that's sitting a bit too high, just from my humble opinion. I'm tapping it down, but I just think it's that's effing warm. That's just a touch high. That's about it. That's all I think. Let's just look at this side. Yeah, it's fairly flat. It's got a bit of a peak, and I think that's probably from when it turned. So yeah, that's just a little critique, but I don't think it's going to affect this job at all, and it's going to be miles better than what was there. But that's it. I just think that's a bit too. It's like it's got somehow managed to pick up a bit of a peak in it. Sit down and see. Yeah, it's just, it should be flat basically, where it sticks up. See, this side's completely flat, and this side's just got a slight ridge in it. That's about it though. The rest of it's fitting pretty good, but that's just making it a bit difficult to put that weld in. Ultimately I could just run a slice through here, just horizontally, and take a sliver out and tap that down. But I think it'll be okay for what we're doing. But that's just one little thing that just needs to be. It's got a speed bump in the middle of it. It shouldn't have. But that's it. All is well. I just don't like upsetting people too much. It's I'm kind of try to be a nice guy at most times. It's amazing how many people actually end up hating on you when you're trying to do the right thing. But as Taylor Swift would say, haters gonna hate. And that's just life. You can't make everybody happy, so you shouldn't try. Just try and make the few people around you happy, and yourself. Don't forget yourself. Yeah, so let's keep welding. There we go, all welded in. Well, at least this side. I'm going to push that up in a second, clamp it from under here so I can see the height, and then I'll go around into the wheel tub and weld up through there, and then I'll come back into the boot where I will trim off the edge of this, and then I will mark out that way, and then I'll make a new piece of tin to go across there, weld it to that effectively, and do some plugs, and then that'll be done. And then I can go over here, and I reckon I will put in the brace, which goes there on that side over here, grind down these welds. If you're wondering why it looked a bit funky, it's because the chassis rail is a bit not quite right, and obviously as it gets, you weld, you clamp, and it cools down, it's sort of, the chassis rail was bulging just a little bit there, so unfortunately that's just going to how bad it's going to be. But hopefully when the bracket goes on here-ish, it should cover that and make it look alright, because it goes in perfect line with that little nub there, or at least it should. Interesting. That seems a bit narrower than that one. Interesting. Just things I notice. But yes, I got more. Had to tap around this quite a bit because this was too tight of a turn, and this was very soft. But all of this lines up perfectly, quite nicely. I put my flange on it, as you saw before. So now we have the flange to match. I mean, that's all factory, so they just gloop that shit in like you wouldn't believe. So then I've got to sit here and grind down 300 welds, which isn't actually. How many is that? 2, 4, 6, 8. I've stopped counting. A lot. But yeah, I'm pretty happy how it's going in, actually. I know I've said that a few times, but those of you who have done a lot of rust roof panels and have encountered how monumentally average they are, that's the most politest way to say it, I get very happy when I encounter one that goes straight in. Some of the ones that are really good are, well, actually, perfectly honest, every single one that better than your old stock do are amazing. They're the ones that make the back panel. They also make a lot of odds and ends. I don't know who makes the sill panels for XYs and that, and XBs and that, but they're all very, very good. And I'm talking about the whole sheet and match, the $300 ones, not the old school tin ones. But the full ones go in with very little issues. So so a lot of the stuff now is getting, there is some mobs getting really good at making panels, and I hope they continue. But the chap who made this one has absolutely blown my mind. Pretty stoked with that one. Highly recommend it, as you might have heard me say 1,000 times. And I mentioned earlier, oh no, that was a different video. Never mind. Carry on. So yeah, I'm going to push this up just here, clamp, and then I'm going to go into the wheel tub and weld around there, and then that's all done. Catch up in a second. Okay, so I've done the ones inside the wheel arch. As you can see, it's pulled it nice and tight. There's no light shining through there now. Now I've got the other bracket that goes in this region, and I will sandblast that and get it all prepped and weld it onto there, because it's going to be my gauge to set how high this has got to be, which is not that hard to work out, but it does help. Yeah, and then I get to grind down a ton of welds, but so far the installation has gone swimmingly. Alrighty, that's a lot of grinding done. I'm covered in metal filings. So painful. Not really, but slightly annoying. Yeah, so that's all done. I was going to put the bracket in. I did have it ready to go in, but I think I'm going to hack the top off this and get that into, put that all together in the corner and stuff before doing that, just because it might allow me to have a little bit more wiggle room in this area. But that has come out lovely. Smashing. Oh my. Pretty darn good. I'm very happy with that, as you may already know. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run a grinder across the top, just on this side of that piece of steel, just to get that lip off, and then I'm going to put another piece through here and just texture along that way, and then cut it that way, and then put the new lip down there, and then weld the two back together. So we'll have a big long weld across the edge, and then plug welds across there. It's not ideal, but it's unfortunately how we're going to have to do, because old mate put that in the wrong spot. So we just have to make do with what we got. Not ideal, but we're just trying to do our best. So keep on keeping on. So my plan was going quite well until I encountered this issue. I got my new piece. The back of it's fairly okay, so I wanted to have it close where I didn't overlap this lump. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then you go up here and it sits on top of the lump. So I'm like, really? And it's a bit back here as well, but that's probably livable, and it's okay through the middle. It's just up the top there. If you look, whoever put that lump in, the swage line I believe, didn't put it in a straight line. It actually veers off to one side, so it's tighter up here than it is here. So that's slightly annoying, because I'm going to have to trim this piece down to have it match. So somewhere about here-ish, it's going to have to start tapering up to a point, which is super annoying, because I went to all the effort to cut that perfectly straight and put that in, hoping it would go in beautifully. In theory, it should go in perfectly. I mean, yeah, I'll still have to trim that down a little bit more, but that's pretty much when it's level what we were hoping for. But it's just annoying that that swage line sort of kicks off at the corner. Yeah, oh well, win some, lose some, so we'll keep on keeping on. Alrighty chaps, there it is, the new, well I guess it's the top edge of the inner rear wheel quarter section. Should know my names by now, I'm a panel beater. But yeah, that's in. That was sat in there, plug welded, and then trimmed down, and then welded all the way along. I'm going to grind that down in a second, and then I'm going to go and stick the bracket in, and then I reckon this whole boot floor section area is done. And then tomorrow's task will be getting this guy out and the rebuild of the back end. But at least we're pretty close to being done of everything in the boot. And they're very solid welds, those ones are. They're not going nowhere. Very nice. And then once you put a bit of seam sealer across there, once it's all done, you'll never ever see it. Smashing, eh? There we go, looking lovely. Yeah, that solves that problem, doesn't it? Yeah, so throw some etch on it. I'll bare metal this area here for where the bracket's got to go, and I'll spray some copper spray there, and I'll stick the bracket back in and line it up with, well, one of the two holes anyway. But that has come out lovely. Very happy with that. Nice smooth line. It is actually copper spray, but I've just sanded some of it back off. I think that's going to do quite nicely, I reckon. Much better than what was there. And of course I really have to stop looking at this car because it doesn't get any better. Well, that's not really good, I'm in my own light, but that's just a recipe for rust. Oh well. Anyway, let's crack on with what I'm doing and get this bracket back in and we'll call it a day, I reckon. Alrighty chaps, I think that'll just about round us up for the day. We are ready to yank off this disaster tomorrow. We've, oh, tell you what, that bracket, woo-wee, that one had been through the ringer. As you well know, this whole corner's crushed, so that's the original one. So somebody had a fair crack at getting it right, but they got it wrong. I had to hammer in the recesses that go in here, because it's actually got a step over this panel behind it, which this one didn't. It was completely flat, so I went to stick it in, it wouldn't fit. Bend that back down. When it comes time, when this is off, don't worry about the gap there, I'll get that flush. I plug welded it on, did the weld there. I always seem to add in a couple extra welds around it just to make it a bit stronger. It's just something I do. I think it's a bit better, and considering how heavily worked that panel is, I don't think it's going to hurt it. But yeah, that's the boot floor in. I hope you like this video. Yeah, so we'll leave it there. I'll catch you up tomorrow or in the next video when we're tackling this one. I think I'd really like to do some sort of barn find or shed find or car revival or something. I really want to do that soon. You know, videos of rust repairs are good, but I just want to do something a bit more fun for a bit, but I don't have any money to buy anything to do anything with, so I have to wait till I have some coin. But yeah, I'd like to do a bit of a car revival in the future. I think that would be something fun to do. If anybody's got an idea of where one would be, that's cheap and good. But yeah, hope you enjoy this video. That's the boot floor in. That's effectively the end of that section, and it went fairly well. So I hope this little video series on this section is helpful if you go to do this in your Falcon, because it's not just Landau. This is the same section in a XABC sedan. I don't think it's the same in a Fairlane. I reckon they're a bit longer through the back there. I reckon they put an extension in here somewhere on the Fairlanes, because I know the petrol tank's still the same. But yeah, that's the same panel as in all the sedans, so Landau, Falcon, Coupe, sedan. I'm not sure about wagon. I think wagon's different again. But yeah, all the sedans anyway. So, hope you like it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.